the last breath on the battlefield. She opened her eyes slowly. Everything hurt. Her head was spinning, her body cold. Dust filled her lungs. The sky above was gray, broken by thick smoke. It was hard to breathe. Zeyra tried to move, but pain shot through her leg. She cried out, but no sound came. Her voice was gone. Blood covered her side. Her armor was cracked, burnt, and useless. She was lying in the middle of a battlefield. Broken weapons, burned trees, crushed machines. The war had ended here. But not for her. She remembered the last thing clearly, the order to fall back, her captain's voice over the comm. Then silence. Her unit had left her behind. No one came back for her, not even to check if she was alive. She blinked slowly, trying to stay awake. She was not human. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes silver, her body strong and built for war. She was a soldier of the tyranny empire. Proud, feared, and now, forgotten. Soft crunch came from nearby. She tensed. Something was coming. She reached for her weapon, but her hand barely moved, too weak. The sound grew louder. Footsteps. It was not one of her kind. She could feel it. The rhythm was different. Heavy, calm, human. Fear mixed with anger. Humans were enemies. Liars. Killers. The war between them and her people had lasted too long. Too much blood had been spilled. She tried to lift her head, and then she saw him. A human in old battle armor stood above her. His helmet was off. His face was rough, tired, and covered in dirt. His eyes were dark brown and full of something she didn't expect. Not hate, not fear, just quiet concern. He knelt beside her, moving slowly, not reaching for a weapon. Instead, he took a small scanner from his pack and ran it over her chest. "You're alive," he said softly. She didn't answer. "Badly hurt," he added, checking her side. "But not dead." Zeyra gritted her teeth. "Why do you care?" Her voice was dry and cracked. He looked at her. "Because I don't leave people behind. I'm not people," she spat. "I'm your enemy." "Not today," he replied. His words made no sense to her. Humans were supposed to hate tyranny, kill them on sight. That's what she had been told. That's what she had seen. He pulled out a small injector and carefully placed it against her neck. She tried to resist, but she couldn't move. The pain faded just a little. "That'll stop the bleeding," he said. "For now." "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this?" He didn't answer right away. He stood, scanned the area, then leaned down again. "Because no one helped me when I was down," he said. "And I know what that feels like." His name was Jonas. She would learn that later. But right now, he was just the human who refused to let her die. He lifted her carefully, putting her over his shoulders. She cried out from the pain, but he didn't stop. He grunted, adjusting her weight, and began walking through the battlefield. Zeyra's vision blurred. She faded in and out. Sometimes she saw his face, sometimes just darkness. The wind blew ash into their path. Broken machines crumbled under their feet. But Jonas kept walking. She wanted to hate him, wanted to believe this was some trick. But each step he took, each breath he gave her space to take, it confused her more. They were supposed to be enemies, but he was carrying her like a friend. Her people had left her to die, but a human had picked her up. And somehow, that truth hurt more than the wounds in her side. Hours passed. Maybe more. She didn't know. But when she finally opened her eyes again, the smoke was gone. They were in a small cave hidden from the sky. There was a blanket over her. She could smell food cooking. She turned her head and saw him, Jonas, sitting near a small fire cleaning a piece of metal. He noticed her eyes. "You're awake," he said. She nodded weakly. "You should rest. You lost a lot of blood." "You're helping me," she said again, like she couldn't believe it. Jonas gave a small shrug. Yeah. Why? He looked at her and gave a small smile. Not happy. Just sad. Because someone has to start acting human again. She didn't know what to say. So she closed her eyes and listened to the fire crackling. For the first time since the war began, she felt something strange. Safe. And it came from the last being she ever expected. A human. Her enemy. Her only hope. And she had no idea why he chose to save her. Shelter among strangers, she opened her eyes again to warmth. Not fire, not pain, but something soft wrapped around her. A blanket, thick, worn, and clearly human-made. It carried the faint scent of engine oil, smoke, and something calming. The ache in her body was still there, but different now. Quieter, like it was listening. Zeyra shifted slightly, wincing, and the sound caught his attention. Jonas turned from the small fire and moved closer, his footsteps quiet. Careful, he crouched near her but didn't reach out. You're awake, he said simply. She nodded, just barely. I thought you'd be gone. Jonas looked away for a second, then back at her. Why would I leave? Zeyra's silver eyes narrowed. Because I'm tyranny. Because we killed your people. Jonas sat down slowly on a crate and let out a tired breath. Yeah, and your kind killed mine. And my kind killed yours. And the killing kept going until no one even remembered why. She didn't speak. She just stared at the flickering fire, her fingers gripping the edge of the blanket. I don't believe in hate anymore, Jonas added quietly. I believe in getting through the day alive. His words echoed in her mind, unsettling. This was not the human she expected. He didn't act like a soldier. He acted like someone who had lost too much already. She looked around the shelter. The cave was deeper than it first appeared. Rough metal panels were leaned against stone walls, forming a half-finished dome. A solar cell unit blinked in one corner, powering a small heater. Food supplies were stored neatly in salvaged boxes. Everything screamed survival, not comfort, not luxury, just enough. This is your den? She asked softly, voice still weak. Found it a few months ago, Jonas said. After my ship crashed, patched it up using what I could find. Zeyra looked down at herself. Her wounds had been wrapped. Her armor had been removed, replaced with soft human cloth. Her breathing mask was fixed and hanging nearby, cleaned and polished. He had done all this. She didn't know how to respond. Jonas noticed her staring. I had to cut your armor off. The metal was melting into your skin. She looked away, embarrassed. In tyranny culture, being seen vulnerable, especially by an enemy, was shameful. You saved me, she said again, as if she needed to hear it aloud. Yes. You could have left. I know. You should have. Jonas gave a half smile. Maybe. She turned to him sharply. Then why didn't you? Jonas stared at the fire for a long time before answering. Because I remember what it felt like. Lying alone in a crater. Bleeding. Watching the sky turn black. Hoping someone would come. He leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. No, one came for me, he said. I crawled for 3 days before I found this place. I told myself if I ever saw another living being, friend or enemy, I'd do something different, something better. His voice was calm, but there was pain underneath it. Zeyra could hear it, feel it. She lowered her head. We are not meant to be saved. Not by you. Jonas raised an eyebrow. Says who? My people. My training. My father. Jonas stood and walked over to a shelf. He took out a small tin and returned to her side. Carefully, he opened it and took out a salve. Zeyra flinched when he reached toward her, but he stopped. May I? She hesitated. Then nodded. His fingers were rough, but gentle. He rubbed the healing salve over the cuts on her arm, then wrapped it in clean bandage. You're not your people, he said. You're Zeyra. Her eyes widened. How do you know my name? He looked slightly amused. You kept saying it in your sleep. Heat rose to her face. Tyranni soldiers were trained to control everything, even dreams. But this human had hurt her. She closed her eyes. You know, if our roles were reversed, I wouldn't have saved you. I know, Jonas said without judgment. But maybe now, you would. She didn't answer. She wasn't sure if he was right or not. The fire crackled softly. Outside, the wind howled through the rocks. In this small cave, in this fragile moment, there was peace. A strange, unwanted peace. And Zeyra didn't know what to do with it. Rest, Jonas said, standing. I'll keep watch. Why? She asked again softly. He paused by the entrance, his hand resting on a rusted rifle. Because you're not alone anymore. As he disappeared into the shadows, Zeyra looked at the fire and whispered to herself, Why do you make me want to believe you? And for the first time in her life, she wanted to. Memories carved in metal morning came slowly. The sky outside the cave turned from black to deep orange, casting soft light on the stone walls. Inside, the fire had died down, but the air was still warm. Zeyra opened her eyes, expecting pain, but the pain was less now. Her body was still weak, but her mind was sharp. She sat up slowly. Jonas wasn't inside. She could hear movement outside the shelter, metal clanking, footsteps shifting rocks. For a moment, she considered running. Her injuries were healing, and she could probably make it a short distance before collapsing again. But something held her back. Her eyes scanned the cave. It was more organized than she'd noticed the night before. Every tool had a place. Every corner held something useful. Wires, broken machines, containers. It was not a warrior's cave. It was a survivor's home. Then she saw it. On the far side of the shelter, near a pile of folded cloth, lay a flat piece of metal. It was smooth, polished, and slightly curved. At first she thought it was scrap, but when she leaned closer, she saw something unexpected. Etched into the surface was an image. 3 faces. A human woman with soft eyes, holding a small child. And beside them, standing tall, was Jonas. He was smiling. It wasn't just a photo. It was carved with care, like someone had used a laser tool to make sure the lines were perfect. The image wasn't digital. It was personal. Real. Zeyra stared at it for a long time. The Jonas she knew, the tired, quiet man with scars and shadows in his eyes, looked different in the carving. Lighter. Alive. It was a version of him she couldn't imagine. She heard footsteps again. Quickly, she placed the metal plate back where it was. Jonas entered, carrying 2 canisters of water and a handful of root vegetables. "You're up early," he said. "Couldn't sleep," she replied. He gave a small nod and began setting the food near the fire pit. She watched him for a moment, then spoke. "Who were they?" Jonas paused. "The woman and child," she said softly. On the metal plate. He didn't look at her. He just kept peeling one of the roots with a dull knife. "My wife. And my daughter?" Zeyra stayed silent. The air in the cave grew heavier. "They were on Colony Ship 5, he added, the day it got hit by tyranni fire. Her breath caught. Jonas finally looked up, but his face wasn't angry. Just tired. Just honest. They were civilians. The ship wasn't armed. But someone in command thought it was carrying weapons. They sent a warning, but not enough time. "I didn't know," she whispered. "Of course not," Jonas said. "Your people never tell the truth about what they do." His words cut deep. But they weren't said in hate. Just pain. "I used to want revenge," Jonas continued. "I signed up for the rescue fleet. I told myself I'd find the ones who did it, punish them. But war doesn't care about revenge. War eats everything." Zeyra looked at the fire, not able to meet his eyes. "You saved me, even after that?" she asked. Jonas let out a long breath. "I didn't do it for forgiveness. I did it because I didn't want to become what took them from me." Zeyra swallowed hard. She felt something sharp in her chest. Guilt, shame, confusion. She was raised to believe humans were monsters, creatures of chaos and lies. But this one had chosen mercy. "You carry their faces with you," she said quietly. "Yes," Jonas nodded. "They remind me of who I used to be, who I'm trying to be again." He stood up and brought her a small metal cup of warm water. She took it with both hands, her fingers shaking slightly. "Thank you," she said. It was the first time she had said it with meaning. Jonas sat down across from her. "You're healing fast," he said. "Tyranni soldiers are built to recover," she replied. "We were designed to fight longer, bleed less." "And feel less?" he asked. Zeyra looked at him. Her voice was quiet. "They tried to make us feel nothing. But I always felt too much. They said it was a weakness. Maybe it's not," Jonas said. "Maybe it's the only strength left in this galaxy." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind outside. Zeyra turned to him, her voice stronger now. "Jonas, what happens next?" He stared into the flames. "We survive," he said. "And maybe we stop running." She nodded slowly, but deep in her heart, a storm was forming, because something was changing inside her, something she had never been trained for. She didn't just want to survive anymore. She wanted to protect the human who had carried her from the edge of death. And for the first time, she didn't feel like a soldier. She felt like someone learning how to live. Hunted again, the silence was shattered by thunder, not from the sky, but from the ground. The earth trembled beneath their feet. Loose rocks fell from the roof of the cave. Zeyra sat up sharply, her eyes wide. Jonas was already on his feet, weapon in hand, eyes scanning the entrance. Outside, something heavy moved through the forest. It wasn't natural, it was metal. Walking, searching. "Scanners," Jonas muttered. "They found us." Zeyra's heart pounded. "Whose?" He checked the blinking panel near the cave's mouth. Red lights. Static. "I don't know. Could be human. Could be tyranny." Zeyra's throat went dry. Both sides would kill them, now. Her people would call her a traitor. Jonas's might think he was protecting the enemy. They were both targets. She pulled herself up with effort. Her legs still ached, but she could stand. Barely. Jonas tossed her a small blaster. Not much charge left. She caught it, nodding. Enough. The cave shook again. A second later, the entrance exploded inward. Rock and light and dust flew everywhere. A spider-like drone burst through, its red eye scanning quickly. Jonas didn't hesitate. He fired 3 shots. The first missed. The second hit metal. The third shattered the drone's core. It collapsed with a dying screech. "Not alone," Zeyra warned, backing toward the shadows. "I hear more." They moved together, Zeyra limping, Jonas leading her through the side exit he had dug weeks earlier. It was narrow and cold, but it opened into a small ravine covered in vines. "Stay low," he whispered. Behind them, another explosion. Machines screamed. The cave was no longer a shelter, it was a trap. They ran, stumbled, climbed. Zeyra's breath came in short gasps, and Jonas's shoulders trembled from strain. Still, they moved. In a clearing ahead, a larger drone hovered, a different kind. It was tyranny made. Zeyra froze. "They're mine." Jonas pulled her behind a rock. "They don't look like friends." She peeked over. Her heart dropped. It wasn't just a drone. It was a tyranny hunting unit. 3 soldiers in black armor stood beside the machine. One of them wore her clan's insignia, her brother's second in command. "They're looking for you," Jonas said. "They'll kill you," she replied. He smirked. "Wouldn't be. The first to try." But his grip on the weapon tightened. Zeyra stood. Jonas grabbed her arm. "What are you doing?" "Ending this," she said. Before he could stop her, she walked into the clearing. The tyranni soldiers raised their rifles instantly. The lead soldier tilted his head. "Zeyra?" "It's me," she said. "I survived." "Impossible, you were left with the dead." "I lived," she said coldly. And I've seen things. Things our leaders hide from us. His eyes narrowed. You're with a human. He saved my life. The soldiers looked at one another. Then, without warning, the lead soldier raised his rifle. Traitor. Zeyra braced for death. But, before the trigger could be pulled, Jonas stepped out, gun blazing. One soldier fell. The drone turned, but Zeyra fired her weak blaster straight into its sensor. It jerked wildly, then exploded. The third soldier lunged at Jonas. They crashed to the ground. Zeyra, limping, grabbed a fallen rifle and aimed. But Jonas was faster. With one swift move, he struck the soldier's helmet, cracking it. The man fell back, stunned. Jonas hit him again. Silence. The clearing went still. Smoke curled from the broken drone. Zeyra's hands shook. Jonas stood, breathing hard. You okay? She nodded, stunned. You saved me. Again. We're even now, he said. But she didn't believe that. She looked down at the fallen tyranni soldiers, her own people. They hadn't come to help. They came to erase her. I don't belong to them anymore, she said softly. Jonas didn't speak. He just placed a hand on her shoulder. Then come with me, he said. And this time, she didn't hesitate. They walked away together, leaving the battlefield behind. But in Zeyra's heart, a fire had started. She had been hunted. She had been betrayed. But now she had a reason to fight. Not for a flag, not for revenge, but for the one who had never walked away. The truth beneath the skin, the sky was turning a deep violet when they found shelter again. Not a cave this time, but the remains of a crashed escape pod, half buried in dirt, tilted to one side, and covered in moss. It wasn't much, but it had walls, and walls meant safety. For now. Jonas lit a dim lamp from his pack. Zeyra sat on a metal crate, her arms wrapped around herself. She didn't speak. Neither did he. Not for a while. The air was too full of questions. Too full of what they had just survived. The fire from the earlier fight still echoed in her muscles. Her people had come not to rescue her, but to end her. They had looked into her eyes and called her a traitor. Worse, they had tried to kill Jonas without hesitation. But it wasn't just that. What shook her more was what she had felt when Jonas stepped into the clearing, when he put himself between her and death. She had felt fear. Not for herself. For him. And that terrified her. You're quiet, Jonas said, breaking the silence. Zeyra looked at him, eyes heavy. I'm thinking. About them? About me. Jonas set down a steaming cup of food beside her. It's not your fault. Isn't it? She stared into the lamplight. I was born into this war. I trained since childhood to hate your kind, to see humans as less. And yet here I am, wounded, hunted, and alive only because of one. Jonas didn't answer. Instead, he sat across from her and unwrapped the bandage around his hand. It was bloodied from the fight. Zeyra moved without thinking, reaching for the med pack. Give me your hand, she said quietly. He looked surprised but offered it. She cleaned the wound with steady fingers. Her touch was precise, trained. She knew how to hurt. But for the first time, she was learning how to heal. You're not what they said you were, she whispered, wrapping the cloth gently. You're not what I was trained to believe. Jonas gave a small smile. I could say the same. She looked up, surprised. You thought we were all monsters. I did, until I saw you cry in your sleep. Her hand froze. You said names, he added. In your language. I didn't understand them, but I heard the pain. Zeyra slowly pulled her hand away. My sister, she said after a long pause. And my brother. They were younger. They died in the second wave. Humans bombed their outpost. I was told it was justified. I believed it. Her voice cracked, the words too heavy to carry. But now, I don't know what to believe. Jonas leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Maybe that's a good thing. Why? She asked bitterly. Truth is supposed to be simple. No, Jonas said softly. Truth is almost always messy. Zeyra looked at him, her eyes sharp but wet. Then tell me your truth. Jonas sighed and sat back. I was born in orbit, station-born. I never stepped on real Earth. My parents worked on solar relays. I joined the Peace Corps first, not the military. I wanted to build things, help colonies grow. He paused. But after my wife and daughter died, I signed up for war. Zeyra felt her throat tighten. She had seen the carving, but hearing him say it made it real. Heavy. And now? She asked. Now I just want the war to end, he said. But not with more death. Zeyra looked away. We don't get to choose peace. Not people like us. Then maybe we have to make it, Jonas said. His words sat between them like a spark. She stood and walked to the open door of the pod. The stars were bright outside, cold and endless. She stared at them, her arms crossed. My people will come again, she said. They won't stop until I'm dead. I know. And yours might not trust me either. They won't, Jonas said honestly. So what are we? She asked, turning toward him. He stood, walked up beside her. We're not enemies, he said. We're not allies either. Maybe we're just survivors. She turned her head slightly. Is that enough? Jonas looked up at the stars. It has to be. A cold wind blew through the trees. Zeyra stepped closer and Jonas didn't move away. For a moment, neither of them felt like soldiers. Neither of them felt like what they had been built to be. They were just two people, broken, lost, but somehow not alone anymore. In the quiet between them, something began to change. Not war, not peace, but something new, something worth protecting. When the beacon called Death Night was heavy with silence, stars blinked coldly overhead, watching as Jonas adjusted the last connection to the emergency beacon. Its lights flickered, then pulsed steady, green, then blue, then red. Zeyra sat nearby, her knees pulled to her chest. Her silver eyes never left the device. You're sure about this? She asked. Jonas didn't look up. No, but we don't have a choice. That beacon could bring anyone, she said. Tyranni assassins, human command squads, scavenger ships, bounty hunters. I know, Zeyra's voice dropped. Then why risk it? Jonas straightened. His face was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of his past. Because we can't keep hiding, not forever. We either die running or take a chance on being found. And maybe, just maybe, someone good will come. He turned to her, his gaze direct. And if not, we fight. Together. The word together echoed in Zeyra's mind like a foreign song. Once, she would have flinched at it. Now she held on to it like a rope in a storm. She nodded slowly. Jonas pressed the beacon's final switch. A deep hum spread across the forest floor, sending a signal into the stars. One long cry of hope, desperation, and risk. They waited. 1 hour. 2. Nothing. Then, near dawn, a sharp beeping broke the quiet. Jonas checked the panel. Someone's responding. Zeyra stood instantly. Signal origin? He frowned. Can't tell, but it's close. She took her weapon and slung it over her back. Jonas handed her a second energy cell. Whatever happens, he said, we don't let them take us apart. Agreed, she said. They packed quickly, ready to move. But before they could step away from the pod, the sky cracked open with a blast of light. A sleek vessel pierced the clouds, black, angular, and unmistakable. Tyranni, Zeyra hissed. The ship landed fast, stirring up leaves and smoke. Its ramp dropped and armored figures stormed out in perfect formation. A voice echoed across the clearing in harsh, familiar tones. Zeyra of the bloodline Larvek, you are under arrest for treason. Surrender now. She froze. The voice, it belonged to General Kresh, the man who trained her, the one who taught her to kill. Jonas raised his weapon. "We run." "No," Zeyra said, stepping forward. Jonas blocked her. "They'll kill you. They'll kill you." She stepped past him. "Zeyra, no," but she raised a hand. "This ends now." She walked slowly into the open. The tyranny soldiers raised their rifles. Jonas cursed under his breath, watching from the shadows, weapon shaking in his hands. "You dare return?" General Kresh snarled, stepping down the ramp. "You walk beside a human like it means nothing, like your blood doesn't matter?" "My blood?" She laughed bitterly. "You left me to die, and he—" She pointed behind her. "He carried me to safety, fed me, healed me." "He is the enemy," Kresh barked. "No," she said clearly. "You are." The soldiers hesitated. Kresh turned to them. "Take her, kill the human." Jonas stepped into view, rifle raised. "You'll have to go through me." The soldiers raised their weapons. Zeyra moved first, with a speed that shocked even Jonas. She struck the nearest soldier, disarming him and rolling into cover. Blaster fire lit the trees. Jonas opened fire, hitting 2 more soldiers. Kresh shouted orders, but his men were falling fast. Zeyra reached Jonas's side, breathing hard. "We have to end this." "Agreed," he said. They moved as one, covering each other, ducking fire, striking with precision. The pod exploded behind them, drawing attention. Using the smoke, they reached the general. Kresh aimed his sidearm at Jonas. "Traitor!" he roared. Before he could shoot, Zeyra lunged, knocking the weapon from his hand and slamming him to the ground. She held the blade to his throat. He glared up at her. "You are nothing now." "I was nothing to you," she whispered, "but to him, I was worth saving." She let him live, but only because Jonas touched her shoulder, silently asking her not to kill. They left him there, shamed, beaten, and surrounded by the wreckage of his arrogance. As they ran into the forest, the beacon still pulsing, Zeyra turned to Jonas. "They'll keep coming. Then we keep moving," he said. She nodded. "But next time, we choose who answers our call." And together, they disappeared into the rising sun, no longer hunted, but rising. 2 souls once broken by war, now bonded by something stronger, something the galaxy had forgotten. Hope. A new name. A new sky. The station orbited quietly above a blue gas giant, its ring of satellites shining like broken glass in the distance. It wasn't a military base or a trade hub. It was something rarer. Neutral ground. A place for refugees, diplomats, and the lost. And today it welcomed 2 unexpected guests. As the human transport ship docked, the guards on the platform tensed. When the doors opened, they reached for their weapons, because standing in the doorway was a tyranny, and beside her, a human. But they weren't prisoners. They weren't enemies. They were walking side by side. Jonas stepped forward first, his hands raised slightly. "We're not here to fight." The captain of the guard frowned. "What's this about?" Jonas nodded toward the woman beside him. "She's under my protection." Zeyra said nothing. Her body was tense, her eyes sharp, but she let Jonas speak. "She's no longer part of the tyranny military," Jonas continued. "They tried to kill her. We've been running for weeks." "And you expect us to believe that?" the captain asked, narrowing her eyes. Zeyra stepped forward. "I don't expect anything," she said. "But I'm not here as a soldier. Not anymore." Her voice was calm, steady. But behind it was exhaustion and truth. A silence fell. Then the captain turned, speaking quietly into her communicator. After a pause, she nodded. "You'll be brought in for questioning. Not arrested." "Not yet." They were escorted through cold halls, past curious eyes. Whispers followed them. Why is a human protecting her? What is she doing here? Is this a trick? In a private room, they were offered food, water, and time. And then, one by one, officials came in, human leaders, station mediators, even 2 neutral alien envoys. Zeyra told them everything, how she was left to die, how Jonas had saved her, how her own kind hunted her for choosing mercy over violence, How she stood in front of a human rifle and said no. Some believed her. Some didn't. Jonas sat beside her the whole time, silent unless asked, watching the faces of those who held power now. When the last official left the room, Zeyra leaned back in her chair. It's done. Jonas nodded. Now we wait. The waiting took 2 days. On the third, a woman in a gray coat entered. She was human, older, her voice calm. You've been granted asylum, she said. Both of you, you're free to stay. Here, or move to any civilian colony under neutral flag. Zeyra blinked. You're serious? The woman nodded. But there's one condition. Jonas tensed. What kind of condition? You must choose a new identity, she said. You can't remain as Jonas of the Lost Fleet or Zeyra of the Tyranny. Both sides still see you as enemies. You need to vanish from their war. Zeyra was quiet for a long moment. Then she whispered, I'm ready. The woman handed her a small data chip. Then choose your name. Zeyra stared at the screen for several seconds, then typed in slowly. Zeyra and Tyel, it meant daughter, of the sky in an old dialect, one her people had tried to erase. Jonas took the chip offered to him next. He didn't even hesitate. Jonas read a simple name, but it meant something now. Something human, something clean. They left the station with new clothes, new IDs, new lives. No longer hunted, no longer running. They settled on a small moon, far from any battlefield. The land was wild, but peaceful. Zeyra planted fruit vines in the soil. Jonas rebuilt solar towers and fixed nearby homes. At night, they sat on a wooden bench under the stars, saying nothing, just being. Sometimes people came to visit, travelers, refugees, children who had lost too much. Jonas offered them shelter. Zeyra taught them how to defend themselves, but only as a last resort. Their home became a place no one expected to find. Safety. Once she was a soldier bred for war. Once he was a man broken by loss. But now they were something else. Not saviors. Not heroes. Just proof that even in a galaxy torn by hatred, kindness could still grow. One night, as a warm breeze passed over the hills, Jonas asked quietly, Do you ever regret it? Zeyra turned to him. No, she said. I would choose this again, every time. He looked at her and smiled. Not the tired smile of a survivor, but the full one, the rare one, the real one. And beside him, Zeyra smiled too. For the first time in her life, not because someone expected her to, but because she had found something no war could take, a future. And in that future, she wasn't alone. She was free.